There's a lot of money in mistakes. No, the cheese has not fallen off the cracker. I have not lost my mind. This is the Think Your Reality Podcast, episode 18. Hang on, here we go.
Your destiny is by your design. Getting what you want in your professional life is gained by following a series of steps created by your mindset. Are you ready to start the journey? This is the Think Your Reality Podcast. Here's Mike Sims.
Hey, it's Michael, and this is the Think Your Reality Podcast. Thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you. I really do appreciate it, and hoping and praying that you're finding value in these. So the value of mistakes, listen to the way that came out. The value of mistakes. There is value in mistakes. Now, if your upbringing was anything like mine, I was taught basically not to make mistakes. Just don't make mistakes. And you were ridiculed for making mistakes. Not making mistakes meant not trying for fear of retribution. And we know now that mistakes are inevitable, and they are of great value depending on what you do with them. If you changed your view or your mindset while looking at your mistakes, what do they look like to you now? It's not about making the mishap. It's about saying to yourself, how can I do this differently? What if I did A? What if I did B instead? Or, I wonder if this will work. We've talked about critical decision point and going back and attacking your goal when you hit an obstacle. Silly putty was a mistake in that it was not fulfilling its original intent. It was supposed to be a rubber substitute during World War II. It turned out to be a $5 billion mistake and a child's toy that's iconic. Crepe Suzettes were an accident. They were created by a then 14-year-old assistant waiter named Henri Carpentier, and a desperate action on the part of the chef to rectify the problem created what is now considered a gourmet dish. When Christopher Columbus sailed westward from Spain in 1492, he was convinced that he was less than 3,000 miles away from Japan. No. A little more sailing beyond that, and he would have reached the Indies, or so he thought, with their rich spice trade. As it turned out, Japan was about 12,000 miles away from Spain, not 3,000. God, what we would do with a GPS now. The reason Columbus thought it was much closer was because he made a mistake in calculating the size of the globe and concluded it was far smaller than it actually is. And that was probably the most momentous mistake in history. A gentleman by the name of Alexander Fleming was a Scottish doctor, pharmacologist, and microbiologist. Now, this guy was a load of laughs. There was not much in his decades-long career prior to 1928 that indicated he would revolutionize medicine and save literally millions of lives worldwide, and still does it to this day. Until that year, his greatest career accomplishment had to do with research on enzymes. This guy must have been a lot of laughs at parties. But in 1928, Fleming would discover penicillin, the antibiotic that would literally revolutionize medical care. As a result, untold millions of lives were saved in the decades since from fatal bacterial infections, and it happened by accident. If mistakes are something you're concerned about making, I want you to consider these next 2 points. A gentleman by the name of George Crumb, yes, his last name was Crumb. He was a chef at the Carrie Moon Lake House in Saratoga Springs in upstate New York, and what he was trying to make was a plate of fried potato. So what happened was one day a customer sent back his plate of potatoes many times and kept asking for them to be more fried and thinner. Well, George Crumb lost his temper. Seriously. Sliced the potatoes insanely thin, fried them until they were as hard as a rock, threw them at the waiter, said, "Here, give him this." And to the chef's surprise, the customer loved them and wanted more. Ladies and gentlemen, the birth of the potato chip. Now, on a side note, is it me, or do you find it funny that the inventor of the potato chip's last name is Crumb? I love that. How about Post-it notes? A gentleman named Spencer Silver was a researcher for 3M Laboratories, and what he was trying to make was a strong adhesive. Well, what he did was, while working away, Spencer Silver created an adhesive that was actually weaker than what already existed. Well, it stuck to objects, but it could be pulled off easily without leaving a mark. And years later, a colleague spread the substance on little pieces of paper to mark his place in his choir hymn book. Voila, the idea was born. Keep in mind, this mistake now generates $1 billion in revenue for the 3M Laboratories. My mistakes usually just get me slapped. I want you to share your mistakes with a trusted friend, because they may offer you a different point of view that you can employ. And sometimes just looking at something from a different angle can make a world of difference. If your attempt at your dreams didn't harm yourself or another person, if you didn't break the laws of man or God, what shame is there then in making an error or a mistake? If you knew that making mistakes got you closer to your goal, would making them bother you? Or would you make more of them in an attempt to get further along? I think you would choose B. If you employ the 180-degree theory and the critical decision point that we've discussed in previous podcasts, and went after your goal with enthusiasm, what value then would the mishap have? And the answer is none. I want to share with you a quote from Elbert Hubbard. He said, "The greatest mistake you can make in life is to continually fearing you will make one." And isn't it true, when you're so fearful of making a mistake, you actually make more? Keep in mind, you are not your mistakes. They are not attributed to you. They're nothing more than a step on the way to your success. Make more mistakes, achieve more greatness, achieve more success, and think your reality. My name is Mike Sims. This is the Think Your Reality podcast. And as I say, as I close, have an absolutely awesome day, as you deserve nothing less.